I am the director of the Barrington Area Council of Governments, and I'm going to refer to our organization as BACOG throughout this presentation. I'm never going to repeat that whole string. Third slide? Oh, I didn't think I touched anything. But this is me in technology. I didn't think I touched anything, but it advanced on its own, I swear. So I'm going to talk about how a small region in Illinois organized to work on groundwater protection and support to private well owners, and how we leveraged resources from the community and from other entities to build really a multi-component groundwater program. So let's start with, look, I pushed it in advance. It's great when it works, right? So BACOG is like an umbrella organization in our area. And by the way, we're in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, so Chicago also has a lot of, cachet in my world. But we used to be ex-urban. Now, as development has increased, we are considered suburban. But we're an umbrella organization. So a council of governments is like a municipal league. We're a small one. We have 7 municipalities and 2 townships as members, and our members pay dues to BACOG, and then those dues pay for our staff and our work. And our staff, by the way, is one almost full-time director, almost, a half-time program coordinator, and a part-time GIS analyst. So we do all the normal COG things like legislative work and shared services. We do a little bit of emergency management enhancement now. But one unique thing about BACOG is that when it was created, the first product they developed was a regional comprehensive land use plan for all of the communities. It was done in 1975, and it had essentially 2 components. One was to manage development and limit it, and the other was environmental protection, and to make sure that the resources were adequate to support the development that was occurring there. So that became the basis, the environmental protection part, became the basis for the groundwater work that we started 25 years later. So in everything we do at BACOG, it's collaborative work, and we work as a region for a regional area that on projects that no one government would do by itself. So existing conditions, and this is really regarding groundwater. So we're an area of about 38,000 in population. Sounds small to you. Actually, it is kind of small because we're in about an 85 square mile area. So as you can imagine, the density is rather low. The area is defined by its natural areas. We are a green oasis in what is now a suburban area. And there's little water infrastructure by design. So we have over 7,800 private wells, and about, I want to say, of that population, about 75% or more are using private wells. And virtually 99% of all the wells are in the shallow aquifer system. We have good sand and gravel aquifer. We don't have other water available to us. I mean, I suppose you could go to the deep aquifer, but people think Chicago and they think Lake Michigan water. We're too far away from that to get it, so that is not an option. But even if we could get it, we don't have the piping, the infrastructure to distribute it to anywhere except the central community, which is kind of older and more urban. Everything else is a countryside community on well and septic. So when I started a long time ago, when I started in 2000 with BACOG, that's why I've known you for 20 years, right? I started this groundwater initiative to try to figure out more, to learn more about what the resource was, and did it have any, do we have any issues? So I think the BACOG story is compelling. You may not, but the vast majority of residents, because they're dependent on shallow groundwater, if anything were to happen, and we would have tons of people with private wells in a small region that would be out of water and essentially on their own. And that became one of the issues that we started with. So we started this initiative and asked these questions. Where is the water? How much water is there? That was before I knew that it was in the shallow aquifer system, by the way. What is the water quality? And is this source sustainable for this small local region? The footnote is about, well, if you have impacts if you don't have enough water, or if you have contaminated water, or if you have your residents, they're going to have to start drilling wells deeper and so on. These are economic impacts. They're also environmental quality of life impacts, to lose the natural areas that are groundwater dependent, and all this translates into property values, of course. So I started what I thought was going to be a science and fact building initiative to inform our governments and our community about their water source. Formed a water resources committee, people from each BACOG government, representatives from the community organizations, from conservation organizations. We had a group of, still do, have a group of advisors from like U.S. Fish and Wildlife, State Water Survey, State Geological Survey, and a hydrogeologist who volunteered. So the first thing we did with the committee was gather readily available information. We agreed on the issues in our area and on some broad goals. What the staff did was next, and it took a few years. We developed some science using best available data, and that was essentially the Illinois State Water Survey database of well logs and so on. But first we characterized the figure on the left. We characterized the wells, the types, the depths, the numbers, and so on. And the goal of the science that we were trying to put together was to answer the questions, where's the water and how much water is there? Well, what we had so far didn't really answer those questions, so we had to complicate the project quite a bit from there. So with our highly qualified volunteer, who was Dr. Kurt Thompson, a hydrogeologist, who volunteer, did you hear that, volunteer, who worked with us for like 15 years. We developed a three-dimensional model of the shallow aquifer system with our GIS analyst, and he developed the protocol that we followed and came up with the model, with a three-dimensional model and maps, derivative maps, analyzed the soil materials and classified them into 4 major categories, which are on the slide, created a stack map, one map every 5 feet, and then compress them, and you get a more realistic version of what's going on there. And by the way, this took about 2-3 years to, remember, we're all part-time. So far, though, at that point, we hadn't spent any money other than BACOG dues that support my salary and a part-time GIS person. So again, this was an engineering approach, just a couple of derivative maps to show you, but the point was to create information for the public, like a visualization of the aquifer units in the blue at the bottom. Especially important was the groundwater recharge areas map, and we use this probably most of anything that we've developed. And remember though, let's go back to the original goal was to inform our governments and the public about the source of their water. So after doing all this work, 2-3 years worth, we started rolling out the model and the maps to the public, a couple of community meetings. We were trying to explain glacial history and geology and the aquifers and, you know, that better understanding part of the goal. We thought we were doing real well. But people kept saying, yeah, okay, but what's my water quality here? So we knew we needed the science to do anything, and it is the basis for everything that we do. But I stopped and reassessed. Well, if they don't want to hear about glacial history, then I guess we'll start water testing. So we did that. So started a program on private well water quality. Now, I will tell you, my agenda really wasn't to test for bacteria. My agenda was to educate people. Darn it, I'm a planner, and I'm going to get this education out. So we started a level 1 program, and this is what we call level 1. So it's bacteria and nitrates. Everybody's been talking about it today. We do it once a year. We still do it once a year. It's a big community event. But we also started level 2, which is natural water quality. And this is where residents test with the Illinois State Water Survey you've seen forms that have all the parameters, about 25, 30 parameters. We do this maybe 4 times a year. We recruit people, they come into our office, and we get the kits and we ship them on behalf of our residents. We ship them to the state lab. The level 1 is a big community event, so everybody gets together, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. So all these programs are organized and facilitated by BACOG, and then testing done by the professionals. And we did education at every point too. Now, that being said, it wasn't my goal. it turned out to be something really important and really meaningful to our community. So as it turns out, we think that not that many people with private wells were testing their wells, including me in my house on private property with a private well. I didn't know I was supposed to test my well. Well, believe me, we do it now. This is a higher economic level community, and I guess people assume that people with private wells knew what to do. But people come in on company transfers, they'd move out again, people come in. Also, we had a lot of people from Chicago who wanted to move to the suburbs. You know how it is, you have a baby and you go, well, where am I gonna live, suburbs? So my governments told me repeatedly, yeah, we had somebody else come in last week and they wanna know where their water bill is. Well, it's kind of a joke, you know. Well, let me tell you, you're not gonna get a water bill, you're on well and septic. So we started at BACOG, we started trying to reach these people. Our level 1 event, we made it, with the committee, by the way, working with my committee, we made it into a big event. Big promotion, everybody had flyers, our organizations who were on the committee sent out to theirs, our governments put it on their websites and put it in their newsletters and so on. We got the Chamber of Commerce to help us and the area library. So we did start reaching people. Some important features of our level 1 program, bacteria nitrates, we offer a discount for well testing, and people like that. Even though they have plenty of money, most of them, they like it that they get $2 or $3 knocked off the price of a test kit. And that actually came from Lake County. So Lake County's our partner in this. Also, somebody else mentioned this, people want it to be convenient. They don't have a lot of time. So this is, they go to their local village hall office or their township office, they buy the test kit, so our members are supporting the program, and then they return them to one central location, which is central to the whole BACOG region. And that's where we do the education and everything else. We do the intake. Our advantage was we got to work directly with people. So one-on-one, we're talking to people who come in with their water samples. And you probably can't tell, but I know how to like lasso people and get them in. Like, so what do you think's going on in your well? Do you have any idea what your well water quality is? Do you know that you're responsible for this? You need to do this every year. And then we take them to the recharge map or ask them to stay and listen to the presentation. So we had consistent messaging. Do you know what's in your water and you're responsible for your well, and we want to give you some additional information. And by the way, we have reports and we share the numbers and press releases after the event. Every year, how many households, what percentage of households have bacteria in their water when they do this test? Our average is somewhere between about 8 and 15% of households. Well, when you tell people that, they're shocked and they get engaged, they get interested. Oh, really? Oh, people do have bacteria. Oh, gee. So we get their engagement. In 9 years of level 1 testing, we have tested over 3,000 households, private well water, and we do analyze who's testing, whether they're repeat testers or new testers. We have growth in both areas, and I consider that a success. In 9 years of the level 2 testing, the natural water quality, we've tested hundreds of households. It's a little bit more expensive, takes a little more time, but those results contribute to our water quality mapping at BACOG, and so we continue to encourage those people to do that. So even though my goal wasn't to test for bacteria, we ended up having the second level, which is supplying data that we're really interested in. And people like it too. People really like the testing. So how do we do this? So a lot of engaged volunteers, our Water Resources Committee, people, they work, they're good people who put in time, relationships with the county and the state health departments and the labs, the support of our own governments and their promotion, and support of the community for advertising this. Social media is a help, we use that. We post a lot about environment. We have a big email list, we just keep collecting emails, so once a year, guess what, twice a year, 3 times a year, we send out a note, here's some information about water, and also, here's the next date for the upcoming level 1 water testing. It's November 5th, by the way, if anybody wants to test. So reminders, and word of mouth. I kept adjusting my notes because of listening to other people talk. I tried the festivals and the local outdoor summer events, and I'd sit at a table like for 6 hours on a Saturday. I have to tell you, I didn't get engagement. People are there to have fun, so they did not want to talk about testing their well water. So I'm not doing that anymore. But Oh, I did try the realtors. Oh, by the way, 0 engagement. So I think I'm going to try, I like the idea of going to the medical community, and we've talked about that in committee, and I've said that'll take a lot of time. But I think that's probably the way to go. That's next. So we do a lot of education, and talking from the big picture. I speak to community groups like the Boy Scouts and the Rotary and the Chamber and so on from time to time, and sometimes I cover one aspect of what we're doing, and sometimes I cover the whole thing. This video is on our website. It's also on the library website, but it covers kind of everything we're doing, and it's probably about an hour. And by the way, I'm not going to tell you about results of our programs necessarily today. You can find a little bit more in that video if you're interested, but because I don't have time to do that in 30 minutes. So I'm going to tell you about how we did it and what the programs are without going into results. But that video is about what we're doing and why we're doing it. So we do educate. And at every testing event, we bring in a speaker, an expert, to talk about something like wells and septic, or maintenance of equipment, or water quality and softeners. And of course, there are several people. Water Quality Association has provided speakers. State Water Survey has provided speakers, these guys. And they're experts, and people like to hear, they like to learn more about their systems. And I talk about the BACOG programs, like the newer monitoring program, and sometimes I even work in a little bit about like hydrogeology and the glaciers. So we've got articles and brochures. Our members display them. They post them. They use them in newsletters. And so we think that, we're getting good support there. The next thing I want to do is I want to get on the radio like our speaker yesterday. I think that would be great. That was a great lightning talk. So youth education, this is a piece that everybody really likes. So there's another video, and our committee developed this video. It's for 5th graders in our regional unit school district, and it's shown in every 5th grade classroom. It's about our water. It's about the water right under our feet. Where does it come from? Where does it go? Drilling, pumps, plumbing. Where does wastewater go? Septic, sewer. Is our groundwater good to drink? Yes, despite what your parents might tell you. We don't say that, but and what does sustainability mean? And that's a pretty important concept. And the fact that everybody plays a role in protecting groundwater. So this was a committee project. Our committee members went out and did little film clips of well drillers, and they went to the health lab and filmed a scientist in the lab testing water. The value of volunteers, again, helps create a much bigger and better program. So after the video is shown, we do a Skype with the scientist session for combined classrooms. Steve Wilson just did one last week. I think Walt Kelly, yours was last week too. So I've recruited our experts, our scientists, to answer kids' questions after they see the video. Kids really like it. Sometimes the questions are really good, sometimes they're not so good, but hey, they're learning, right? They're learning. And I push the message, if I'm in the classroom, take this message home to your parents. They're supposed to be testing their well water once a year. Tell them, And we also think that we're creating young groundwater advocates, and it addresses STEM, so it's all good. Another component of our programs is the planning and development. And like I said, I'm a planner by education, so this piece is supposed to be what I like most about our programs, but it's really not. I really like the other stuff. So we use the recharge map in particular as a consideration in development decisions, proposals for development, and also by our governments, but also by our conservation organizations. It has helped them prioritize open space to acquire. Higher priority if it's groundwater recharge area. And we wrote chapters for each of our government members to put in their comprehensive plans about their groundwater, what is supplying their community, and gave them some goals and objectives. So another component is our monitoring. So a few years ago, I convinced my board that our next logical step was to monitor water levels, because water supply is probably a bigger question in our area than water quality. So an Illinois State Water Survey report in 2009 projected declining water levels in our area, basically due to development around us, and significant reductions in groundwater discharge to the watersheds. So what the cost to our community could be the 7,840 some wells might have to do something different, drill deeper, whatever. And also there's a concern about property values because of the changing character of the community. So a home without a good water supply doesn't have a whole lot of value. But the project essentially creates a baseline of water levels, and then we're looking for trends, collecting data in the meantime that contribute to an analysis, and every 5 years we'll do an evaluation of where the water levels now and how do they compare to 5 years ago. This is a long-term project. It's going to be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, long after I'm gone. But that gives our governments and our community the basis for taking action if we need to take any action. So it's like the radar. This slide shows the data sources that we're using, where we're collecting data from, and also the reports that we have completed so far. Now, this project has a cost. So we got, this is where my specialty. I get a hold of some scientists like Steve, and I say, Steve, I really need some help on this project. And by the way, we could really use a staff person to maybe help us monitor or measure these wells. So the first thing I did was I got a contribution of equipment for 3 of the monitoring wells that exist in our area. They're the State Geological Survey wells. And that equipment was probably worth about $20,000. We've leveraged measurement of the other 15 monitoring wells through Steve and Walt and the State Water Survey and the State Geological Survey. And then the BACOG governments share the cost of the ongoing contract we have with USGS to clean the data and host it on the National Water Information System online. So BACOG collects the data for the 5 stream gauges, but those stream gauges actually belong to our watershed partnership, local watershed partnership. So again, collaboration is really key. And I collect data from 65 approximately pumping wells in our area. Most of them are our neighboring communities. I facilitate, they measure on a set date, and everybody who I just mentioned gets the data from this whole process of looking at water levels. So, and you saw a little bit on the right is some of the, like a snapshot of what data looks like right now. So a second piece of monitoring is the natural water quality mapping. And we're working on still, we don't have it done yet, working on a baseline map and report of 10 chemical parameters in our area, including arsenic, fluoride, chloride, sodium, and some other things. Now, this is a staff function that's in progress. And again, we're using those level 2 tests to develop this baseline. So we decided to limit this to a 10-year period. About 80% of the test results that we're using to do the mapping are from our own residence tests through BACOG, done through BACOG with State Lab. And we're also using some of the state data for that same time period. I've tried to leverage interns to do some of the research and writing of this report. You know, sometimes interns work, sometimes volunteers work, sometimes they don't. I haven't been successful. I think it was just a little bit too complex. So of course I turned to my other point of leverage. Walt Kelly, could you help us design this project so that we can do it in-house? And so that is how we're proceeding. Thank you very much. So ongoing goal, collect more level 2 tests from our residents so that we have more data for a picture, a snapshot, 5 or 10 years out to compare to the one that we're doing right now. And I've heard so many times from residents about how bad our groundwater is in the BACOG area. Well, that's not true. So I anticipate that this will be a significant contribution to the community being better informed about their water quality. This is the BACOG website where the reports that we've done so far, and the one that's anticipated, not yet released, the link to it. And we continue to share with the public this information. Now, people are just starting to ask at the level 1 events, or when people are calling more regularly, stopping by the office, but they're starting to ask, so what does this mean? And how does it relate to my well and my drinking water? And really, that's what we wanted them to ask all along. Let me tell you, let me explain a little bit. I think that's progress. This is a summary slide, just kind of what we've done. Basically, our work falls into about 4 or 5 categories: the science, the testing, education, planning, and monitoring. One thing that I didn't mention yet is that next to the last bullet, I'll just cover it briefly, the community survey one. So I've been a member since I started this job of this group. It's a coalition called Healthier Barrington Coalition. It's about 40 local not-for-profits and governments and the hospital and so on. They've been doing a community survey every 3 years for over 20 years. It's the longest standing survey in the United States, they tell us. In 2014, I thought, you know, the heck with shopping, who shops where and things like that. I want to know what people know about groundwater. So we worked with the committee, developed 6 questions, got them into the survey in 2014. Things like, tell us where your water comes from, which is a do you know kind of question. Steps you've taken for water conservation, or how often do you test your private well for bacteria and nitrate? Well, what we saw in, that would have been 2017, was a somewhat of an increase in awareness. More people knew where their water came from, and that was great. So I think that the reason we're doing this is success really comes in more than counting well tests. I can do that, but success comes in improvement in understanding, changes in behavior, and implementing what you know to protect our groundwater. So the programs that we have, it's kind of a mixed bag of what we do, but they're all connected to people's understanding and helping them change behavior. This is drought. I want to talk about money. So BACOG members pay a lot of dues to BACOG, covers our staff, enables us to do the work that we do, and now they pay an extra piece that's about $15,000 a year that they share for the groundwater program. But I have to tell you, I have been to legislators, to state departments, to the federal government, to private foundations, to whatever I could find, looking for money to support this program. And what I found is surface water programs get money. There's money there for them. But groundwater isn't really, it isn't there for my programs anyway, or maybe, you know, we're too narrow, or I don't know. Everybody sees the value of doing this work when I approach them for money, but no one has the money to contribute. So hence the drought photo. So I think it shouldn't be this way, but it's just something that we have to work around for now. So Steve asked me to talk about BACOG as a model, and I think that's because he was here 20 years ago, and he knows that I started from nothing and built a program that is meaningful to our regional community. So this is kind of the process I work through with the Water Resources Committee, my volunteers, my governments, things you all know about. I'm not going to go through this, but one thing I want to say is keep in mind that goals and outcomes can be an evolution. Like I didn't want to test for bacteria, but boy, it sure did trigger a whole program that people probably like the best of everything we do in water. So you never know. Think outside the box a little bit. I think if you're looking to start something new that's outside what you do in your agency, the most important thing is to organize your vehicle. And I don't mean your SUV, I mean who should be doing the work, who can do the work, who can you work with? Is it a watershed partnership, a municipal league, a regional planning committee? Who could work with you to implement the program you want to do? And these are also groups, by the way, to recruit volunteers from. So it's important to have basic science, which is the basis for everything we're going to do. Your work also has to be credible. So that's why I recruited Wald and Steve, and I could mention probably 6 or 8 scientists at the state surveys to work with me on the committee to advise me, and also personally to advise me as we're moving in new directions over 18 years. They've done a ton of work, the state surveys in Illinois. Several counties are mapped and modeled. If you have that kind of information available to you, it can just be purely that is the basis for the science for whatever program it is you want to develop. I think the key is just get best available data. And then leverage resources. That is really the how-to. I'm going to give you one example. Our first 2 years of our GIS intern budget was a grad student, but our townships weren't members of BACOG at the time, but they gave me 2 years of funding for a student who stayed for 2 years. It was great. It was about $20,000. It was wonderful leverage. The bigger leverage was then I invited them to become members of BACOG with the approval of my board, and they said yes. So we have their contribution now. They understand the value of what we're doing, and we have an ongoing contribution. A lot of things I still want to do. I regularly recruit for help. If I haven't lassoed you in the hallway yet, maybe, well, I have actually, some of you, but you can be one of my resources, and I really appreciate it. I have an acknowledgement. I mentioned our volunteer hydrogeologist, Dr. Kurt Thompson, did the protocol for our science in the early years. He was a huge help. He was a friend. He's still alive. It's not past tense. He is a friend. That came out wrong. but to this day, I'm going to say he was the most valuable leveraged contribution I had to do this program, and I'm very grateful. So if you have questions, you can contact me, and if I'll try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's
no questions.
No questions, right?
All right.
Oh, no, now two just popped up.
Okay.
My mic is off. My mic is off. Yeah. It's not working? All right, I'll use this. Well, we can see him. We need to both use this because we have to record it so he knows what's. What was the biggest challenge getting your program off the ground? The hardest part of getting your well owners interested in the program?
You know, there wasn't a huge challenge to get the program started. Maybe it was my board at the time, which seems kind of unbelievable, but they weren't convinced that we needed to do much work in groundwater. They'd be sort of interested in hearing some things about it, but they have become such hugely committed board members who support everything I say, we need to go in this direction or this direction. Now they get it, they understand, so that's been probably the biggest satisfaction. I know that wasn't the question. And the hardest part, it's what everyone has said here this week. People don't, either they think they've got bad water quality, but it's not going to hurt them, or it's okay water and there's nothing wrong with it. They don't know about the contamination, which is why I said we do the report that says how much bacteria there is, or how many households have bacteria when we test. That gets their attention. So that has been the path that helps us then get more engagement.
Okay, so this next one you can just answer. You can once you read it.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever get pushback from people that this information could negatively impact their property values? We have discussed that in-house. We haven't really had residents tell us that, but when we do the level 2 water testing, the natural water quality, yes, we've had discussions about, well, so if what are they required to disclose in a sale of their property if they find something like they've got a little bit of arsenic? So it is a report that goes directly from the State Water Survey Lab to the homeowner. We get a copy. We're mapping anonymously water quality in the region. There are points, but you can't tell where they are. So there's that. I mean, the bacteria, I don't think we'd get pushback because you'd be better off knowing and then fixing it. That's a totally fixable problem. Yeah.